Welcome to Ripples. Thank you for coming. Welcome, Phil. Good to see you. So, very often, Phil, on Saturdays and Fridays, actually, the ripple is created from the 2 p.m. patient who leaves 10 minutes or before ripple starts, basically, and then we often create a ripple from that patient. And she was telling me a story about what she heard on NPR yesterday. There was a story of a man whose research is based in the brain, and he studies psychopaths. So he looks at their brain scans and sees that there are dark patches in the brains of psychopaths, and he can tell the degree of psychopathy, psychopathic tendencies, I just made up a word then, by the mapping of these dark areas in the brain. And as you know, anytime I'm listening to a story, I'm constantly translating into Chinese medical language as best I can. And so the story is that a student of his brought him a particular brain scan, and he looked at this scan, and there was an inordinate amount of darkness in this brain, and he said to the student, "Oh my goodness, there's a person out there in the world presumably as an undiagnosed person, and this is definitely a psychopath, and we need to find this person and get them some help urgently before they do some damage." And the student said to him, "Well, actually, Professor, it's your brain." And so then he just couldn't believe it, and he checked in with his wife and his family and his brother, and they all confirmed that he was indeed a psychopath, and gave him a multitude of examples about illustrating how and why, and then he exerted an enormous amount of effort to try to change his behavior, and he said it was a tremendous amount of work. And it tied in to the first patient this morning, who was telling me about how concerned, she's a psychiatrist, and she was telling me how concerned she is about the concept, or that the prevalence of ghosting. People going out on a date, and then one person never even says thank you, or that was great but it's not going to work. They don't say anything, they just disappear. I know you're familiar with these terms. So she's really concerned about the damage that it does, and she had a patient who was doing this habitually, and she said to him, you must write or call, you just have to. And he said, "Well, it's much easier just to leave it alone and walk away. I mean, it's hopeless anyway." And she said, "Yes, it's much easier. It is much, much easier, but it's simply not right." And so, coming back to the professor, I'm talking about changing behaviors. Coming back to the brain researcher with the psychopathic tendencies and the dark patches, if we were to put that through a Chinese medical filter, we're talking about Jing Stasis. The brain is the sea of Jing. That's all it is. It's this big blob of beautiful fatty Jing, 99% fat. And if there are dark patches in it, it means that it is not able to, the qi of that Jing is not able to be in circulation. So how would we treat somebody like that in order to enable the Jing to so-called move? Now, we're not talking obviously about literally shifting the Jing. We're talking about shifting the qi that runs through the Jing, which is yuan qi. We're talking about enabling that to shift. And the 2 points that I thought would be good for that ripple, and the ripple that we would be putting into the pond would be Andrew, my dear husband, is contributing. Thank you, love. It's like the same story in Plato about Socrates. Could be just interesting, people who recreate themselves. The face reader came to Athens and saw that Socrates was like a criminal, but he had used his darkness for genius. Oh, I love that. Do you want to press your space bar and just say a tiny bit more, Andrew? He's probably washing the dishes or something. Never mind. All right. So here he goes. We can't hear you, Andrew. Never mind. Another time. So the point, kidney 11, which I got these. I saw that Phil was on the chat, and so I got this for you, Phil. This is, if you see that black dot in the middle, is the location of kidney 11. If you drive your hand down from your belly button all the way down to your pubic bone, which is the first bone that you hit, kidney 11 is half an inch off to one side. And it's called the warehouse of destiny, although if you look in Deadman, it's called pubic bone, but Jeffrey puts a much more beautiful name on it if we use it in the context of Chiang Mai. So kidney 11, the warehouse of destiny, which is a mover of Jing. It's where the Jing comes from the Chang and it begins to be articulated for the myriad of purposes of Jing. And the other point would be the wind palace, which is due 16 at the back of the skull. I should show this camera too. It's due 16 and kidney 11. And so the ripple we're putting out into the pond is the one that fosters the free flow of yuan qi, thereby allowing the Jing to be refreshed and nourished and active rather than stagnant. And the ripple that we would put out in the pond would result in the lessening of antisocial thought, which you could expound upon, exponentially, really, ending up with the idea that everything is interconnected. So, thanks for being here. Let's get to work. couldn't hear Andrew. Andrew, if you can hear me. Andrew, do you want to speak again?
Hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. No need to repeat what I was saying. Just that personally, I don't believe that psychopaths are physiologically different than the rest of us, or that we psychopaths are different than the rest of you. I don't know. I don't believe it's physiological. I don't believe brains are different, but it's still an interesting story. And there is the story of Socrates when this master face reader came to town, and they said, well, and he was saying people were this, people were that. And they said, let's go get someone who gets Socrates because we know who he is, and we'll see what this guy has to say. He took one look at Socrates and he said, you, sir, are a criminal. And they were all about to, physically push him out of Athens. And Socrates laughed and embraced him and said, you're really good, you really get it. You're absolutely right, but I didn't go that way. And it's a story that's told in Plato's writings.
I agree with you. I do agree with you, but I think that if Jing is stagnated, then it's not able to express that reality, that truth.
No, I love the ripple about stagnated Jing. I do actually love that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
For sure.
So, thanks
and I love the choice of points.
Okay, yeah, and I also didn't explain why we're using do 16. So do 16 treats Shen disturbance with a particular vector to the brain. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.